With its choreographed pomp and ceremony, it is expected to be the largest international event the UK has hosted possibly ever, according to sources. It is the biggest operation undertaken in the history of the Metropolitan Police. More than 1 million people are expected to line the streets, with crowd numbers exceeding those for the Queen's coronation in 1953, her father George V's state funeral in 1952 and the ceremonial funerals held for Diana, Princess of Wales in 1997, and the Queen Mother in 2002. The manpower needed to ensure Operation London Bridge goes without a hitch will surpass that for the Queen's Jubilee events and the London Olympics. Crowds will flock to Westminster Abbey but will also line the route to Windsor to watch the Queen's final journey, requiring huge logistics, erecting barriers and closing streets. The Met has put up 22 miles of barriers across central London. Train services will run as normal. Flights into Heathrow have been cancelled to ensure the skies over London fall quiet during the events. Members of the public file past the coffin of Queen Elizabeth II, Image, Getty. Some bus and tram services across the country will halt at 11:55 a.m. as the ceremony draws to a close and the national 2-minute silence takes place. Meanwhile, giant screens have gone up in Hyde Park and in many cities and towns to allow mourners to congregate and watch. The funeral will also be screened in the Curzon, View and Arc cinemas, and in the Queen Elizabeth Hall, in London's South Bank Centre, all free of charge. Last post, a short bugle call, will be played in Westminster Abbey and then the nation will come to a standstill for the 2-minute silence to honour Her Majesty. There will also be specialist first aiders to help anyone overcome with grief. St John Ambulance has 32 mental health trained first aiders ready across London and Windsor to help anyone who finds the events of the day overwhelming. Preparing, members of the Grenadier Guards rehearse in Windsor. Image, PA Images. Richard Lee, SJA's chief operating officer, said, "This is the first time we have deployed mental health first aiders. I was walking down the queue to see the Queen lying in state and thought there could be people here who knew her or worked for one of her charities, and I could see some were extremely upset." A quarter of SJA's 10,000 volunteers have been involved since the Queen's death announced, supported by about 100 backroom staff who helped move 20 tons of medical equipment and 100 vehicles, including 22 mobile treatment centres and about 30 ambulances, into London. As of Friday morning, SJA had given out 12,000 blankets and 15,000 bottles of water to people queuing for the Queen's lying in state. Mr. Lee said, "By Friday morning we had provided support to 450 people, mostly foot care and plasters to people standing for long periods, or pain relief for bad knees, hips and ankles, and rehydrating people." The London Ambulance Service has 300 extra staff across its 999 control rooms and on the road tomorrow. Yesterday Met Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley greeted people in the queue. Stranding the Met would not confirm the total number of officers involved in the operation. However, Deputy Assistant Commissioner Stuart Cundy said colleagues from every force had came to help, with about 20,000 hours of shifts in the past week. In all, there will be 2,000 extra officers on patrol from other parts of the country. He said, "This will be the largest single policing event the Met Police has ever undertaken and the largest global protection operation the Met has ever undertaken. It is a truly immense operation of huge scale and complexity." Thames Valley Police will have around 2,000 officers and airport-style security in Windsor tomorrow, ahead of the committal service. Mr. Cundy said the stabbing of 2 officers in London on Friday, although not connected to the morning, had brought the need for security into sharp focus. By Friday there were 34 arrests linked to the morning but none for protesting, which will be allowed, even tomorrow. A day of reflection. A 1-minute silence will be observed across the country at 8 p.m. tonight to mourn and reflect on the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II, writes Benjamin Russell. The King will also host a lavish state reception at Buckingham Palace for dignitaries from around the world as they arrive ahead of the Queen's funeral tomorrow. Among them will be U.S. President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron. Prince William, wife Kate and Princess Anne will also be at the event. The King is expected to hold a palace audience with Prime Minister Liz Truss. Full schedule of Queen Elizabeth II's state funeral. London 6:30 a.m. Doors will close to the public for the Queen's lying in state in Westminster Hall. 8 a.m. The doors of Westminster Abbey will open to the congregation to take their seats for the state funeral service. Heads of state and overseas government representatives, including foreign royal families, governors-general and realm prime ministers, will gather at the Royal Hospital, Chelsea, and travel under collective arrangements to Westminster Abbey. 10:35 a.m. Just after 10:35 a.m., a bearer party, formed by the Queen's Company, 1st Battalion Grenadier Guards, will lift the coffin from the catafalque. It will then be carried in procession from Westminster Hall to the Royal Navy's state gun carriage, which will be positioned outside the building's north door. 10:44 a.m. The gun carriage, drawn by 142 Royal Navy service personnel, will set off. The King, members of the royal family, members of the King's household and household of the Prince of Wales will follow the coffin. 10:52 a.m., the procession will arrive at the west gate of Westminster Abbey, where the bearer party will lift the coffin from the state gun carriage and carry it inside. 11 a.m., the funeral service will begin. 11:55 a.m., last post will sound, followed by a national 2-minute silence. 12 p.m., Reveille, the national anthem and a lament, played by the Queen's Piper, will bring the state funeral service to an end at approximately noon. The coffin will then be carried to the state gun carriage. 12:15 p.m., the procession will set off for Wellington Arch at Hyde Park Corner, following the route of Broad Sanctuary, Parliament Square, South and East Sides, Parliament Street, Whitehall, Horse Guards including Horse Guards Arch, Horse Guards Road, the Mall, Queen's Gardens, South and West Sides, Constitution Hill and Apsley Way. 1 p.m., the procession will arrive at Wellington Arch. The bearer party will lift the coffin from the state gun carriage and place it in the state hearse. The hearse will then depart on its journey to Windsor as the parade gives a royal salute and the national anthem is played. The King and the Queen Consort, the Prince and Princess of Wales and members of the royal family will depart for Windsor by car. Windsor 3:06 p.m., the state hearse will approach Shaw Farm Gate on Albert Road, Windsor, and join the procession, which will have been formed up and in position. 3:10 p.m., the procession will step off. The route will be, Albert Road, Long Walk, Cambridge Gate, Cambridge Drive, George IV Gate, Quadrangle, South and West Sides, Engine Court, Norman Arch, Chapel Hill, Parade Ground, and Horseshoe Cloister Arch. 3:20 p.m., the door of St. George's Chapel will open for the congregation for the committal service. 3:25 p.m., members of the royal family who will not join the procession will arrive at St. George's Chapel for the service. 3:40 p.m., the King and other royal family members who are walking in the procession will join it at the quadrangle on the north side as it passes into Engine Court. 3:53 p.m., the procession will halt at the bottom of the west steps of St. George's Chapel in Horseshoe Cloister. The bearer party will lift the coffin from the state hearse and carry it in procession up the west steps. 4 p.m., the committal service will begin. The length of the service. is not yet known, but when it ends, the King and members of the royal family will depart from the Galilee porch for the castle. It marks the end of public ceremonial arrangements. 7:30 p.m, a private burial service will be conducted by the Dean of Windsor, attended by the King and members of the royal family. The Queen is to be buried together with the Duke of Edinburgh at the King George VI Memorial